parked the van behind the morgue just past midnight. Nobody wanted to use the front doors because they were chained, so the plan was to sneak in from the back. The place was abandoned for years, but people still whispered about it. To me, it didn't feel like a joke. It looked rotten, cold, and wrong. Inside the van, the guys laughed like it was nothing. Lucas shoved the camera in my face, asking me to introduce the video. Nathan was busy checking batteries, cables, and his tripod, like we were shooting a movie. Brian wasn't there. At least, that's what they told me. I was glad he was the one who always turned a bad idea into something worse. When we walked toward the morgue, the building towered in silence. The walls were black, the roof was cracked, and a stench floated out even before we entered. Lucas laughed at my face, told me to smile for the camera. I couldn't. We found a broken side door. The second I stepped inside, the air turned colder and thicker. The tiles cracked under my boots. The smell of mold and something foul spread everywhere. I already wanted to leave, but I didn't want to be the only coward on camera. The hallways were long and dirty. The walls peeled like skin, and the ceilings sagged in places. Our flashlights caught pieces of broken stretchers, bent metal, and dark stains on the floor that never washed away. We set up the first camera in the lobby. Nathan kept telling us to move slowly so the shots looked good. Lucas whispered fake ghost noises behind me. The others laughed. I didn't. I stayed in the middle of the group, holding my flashlight tight. At the end of the hallway, we heard something move. It wasn't a rat. It was heavier. A dragging sound, followed by a sharp tap, like a heel scraping the floor. We froze for a second. Nathan said it had to be an animal. I wasn't convinced. We pushed forward. Every step echoed too loudly. Every door we passed looked ready to slam shut by itself. I wanted to say we should stop filming, but they would just laugh again. The tension broke when Lucas killed his camera light. I asked him what the hell he was doing, but he only told me to walk ahead. My stomach tightened. The hallway stretched in front of me, dark and silent. Then a figure jumped from the shadows, screaming in my face. I dropped my flashlight and fell against the wall. For a moment, my body locked. When I saw the mask come off, it was Brian. He was laughing so hard he couldn't even stand. The others joined him, shouting that they got my reaction on camera. Nathan pointed at me, saying it was gold, that this video would blow up. My chest still hurt from the scare, but they didn't care. I tried to calm down, but something felt wrong. Even after Brian stopped screaming, I swore I could still hear the echo of it deeper in the building, like a voice that didn't belong to him and joined in. We finally reached the cold storage area. The drawers where bodies used to be kept lined the walls. Some doors were rusted shut, others bent open. The smell was sharp and rotten, strong enough to sting my throat. Nathan wanted another tripod here. He handed me the flashlight and told me to check the hallway ahead. I didn't want to, but the camera was on me, so I walked. My hand shook so bad the light bounced everywhere. That's when I heard it. Steps. Slow. Uneven. Dragging. They came from the dark hall ahead. Lucas whispered that Brian was screwing with me again. But Brian was right behind Nathan, holding the camera. I froze. The steps came closer, scraping along the floor. My chest tightened. I forced myself forward, one step at a time, trying to prove it was nothing. At the end of the hallway, I saw her. She sat against the wall, knees up, hands covering her face. Her clothes were filthy, ripped open in places. At first, I thought she was alive. Maybe someone who broke in. My flashlight shook over her body. I took another step. The sound of my friends faded behind me. The beam landed on her hands as she slowly lowered them. Half her face was gone, flesh ripped away, bone and teeth exposed. One eye stared at me, wet and wide. Her jaw hung loose, trembling as she let out a sound. It wasn't hers. It was broken somewhere between crying and choking. I fell backward, hitting the floor. My flashlight rolled away. She didn't stand up. Se floated. Her body lifted, her legs hanging, toes brushing the ground without walking. She drifted toward me, head tilted, her single eye fixed on mine. The sound grew louder, a wet cry, sharp and painful. I crawled backward, grabbed the flashlight, and shined it on her face. She didn't stop. She leaned closer, her mouth opening wider, the sound tearing out of her throat. I ran. I ran through the holes, calling for my friends. No one answered. My voice bounced back at me, thin and broken. The cameras were still standing in the rooms we had passed, lights blinking, but the guys were gone. I checked every door, every room, empty. My flashlight caught glimpses of movement, but never full shapes. The sound of crying followed me, closer every time I turned the corner. I found the door we used to enter. It was sealed shut, covered in heavy boards that weren't there before. I kicked it, pulled at it. Nothing moved. My hands bled from trying. The crying grew louder. I heard steps. 2, dragging along the floor, circling me. I ran back inside, searching again, screaming their names. I only heard my own voice and the sharp, broken sound of her breathing. When I finally reached the far end of the building, I found a shattered window. I forced myself through, the glass cutting my arms. I didn't stop. I ran until the morgue disappeared behind me. The police searched for days. They found the cameras, the tripods, our bags. They didn't find my friends. The footage was corrupted, static across most of it. A few frames showed them walking behind me. Then nothing. They were gone. People asked me 100 times what happened. I told them about the woman, about her missing face, the way she floated, the sound she made. They looked at me like I was lying or insane. The reports listed my friends as missing. Weeks passed, then months. Nobody found them. Their families stopped calling me. I was left with the memory of that night and the sound that wakes me up almost every time I try to sleep. I woke up inside a body bag. My chest barely moved. My arms were stiff, and every breath scraped my throat. The plastic clung to my face, hot and suffocating. I forced my hand up until my fingers touched the zipper, and I pulled it open just enough to let in air. The cold hit me like a slap. The light above flickered, throwing the room into an uneven rhythm. My body lay on a steel table naked, a tag tied around my toe. I sat up slowly, shivering, my mind racing to understand why I was here. I slid my legs over the side, almost collapsing when my feet touched the tiles. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the hum of the lights. For a moment, I thought I was alone. Then the door opened. A man stepped inside, tall, broad shoulders, his scrub stained in different shades. He froze the second he saw me upright. His mouth opened, but no words came. The clipboard in his hand shook, and for a second, I thought he was going to drop it. What the hell? You were gone. I checked your pulse. You were cold. His voice cracked at the end, caught between shock and anger. He shut the door behind him slowly. His eyes locked on me like I was an animal that wasn't supposed to exist. He rubbed his forehead with a trembling hand, muttering under his breath, "This can't be happening." "Not now," Hippa said then slammed the clipboard onto the counter. His breathing was fast, uneven. He pointed at me, almost accusing. "Do you have any idea what you've ruined? Do you know how much this costs me?" I didn't answer. My throat was too dry to form words. My legs wobbled as I pushed them off the table. His expression shifted from panic to something sharper, darker. The fear drained, leaving only frustration. He walked to the counter and grabbed a scalpel. His grip wasn't calm. It was tight, his knuckles white. He turned to me again, his face flushed, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. "You're not supposed to be breathing. You don't belong standing. You belong on that table." Opened up. The room felt smaller the moment he said that. He wasn't just surprised anymore. He was furious, like I'd cheated him out of something he already owned. He stepped closer, the scalpel flashing under the buzzing light. I staggered backward until my back hit the locked door. My hands searched blindly for the handle, twisting it with all my strength. It didn't move. I banged my fist against the metal, but the sound was hollow, swallowed by the walls. He grinned, now, bitter and shaky. "You think anyone can hear you? You think anyone cares? This floor is mine. Nobody walks in without me knowing. His footsteps echoed as he approached. I reached for anything, grabbed a metal tray, and hurled it at him. Instruments scattered across the floor with a crash. He flinched, but didn't stop. The scalpel stayed in his hand, steady despite his trembling shoulders. When he reached me, his hand shot forward and clamped around my wrist. He slammed me against the steel table where I had woken up, forcing my back down on the cold surface. The scalpel hovered inches from my chest. I've cut open more bodies than I can count. Some were fresher than you. Stop fighting, and this will be quick. I twisted, kicking at his stomach. The blade scratched my skin as his hand slipped, leaving a shallow line across my chest. The sting burned. I shoved at his shoulders with both hands, and he stumbled just enough for me to roll off the table and crash to the floor. I scrambled up, rushing past him toward the far side of the room. He lunged, but caught only air. My legs shook as I ran to a curtain at the back and yanked it aside, revealing another door. I pulled the handle locked again. My heart hammered behind me. He laughed, not because it was funny, but because he enjoyed seeing me trapped. There's nowhere to go. Every door leads back to me. I grabbed a jar from the counter and threw it. It shattered against the wall, spraying liquids and shards across the tiles. He ducked, but barely slowed down. His shoes crunched over the glass as he closed in. I picked up a metal stool and swung it clumsily, forcing him to step back. The stool slipped from my hands and crashed onto the floor. He lunged, and his shoulder slammed into my ribs, knocking the air out of me. We both fell, the scalpel scraping against the floor between us. I reached for the scalpel, but he yanked me back by the ankle. My nails scraped against the tiles, leaving nothing but red marks. He pulled me toward him, his face twisted with rage, his teeth bared. I can't sell a body that breathes, but I can still take what I need. He straddled me, his hand pressing down on my throat. My vision blurred as spots of light filled my eyes. I clawed at his arms, my fingers slipping on the sweat and blood from the cut on his forearm. Somewhere to my side, my hand found broken glass from the jar I had thrown earlier. My fingers wrapped around a shard, slicing my palm. I didn't care. I rammed it into his shoulder. He screamed and fell sideways, the shard still buried in his flesh. Blood smeared across my chest as I shoved him off and crawled toward the scalpel. My hands shook as I picked it up, but I didn't swing it. I just held it between us, too terrified to use it. He pushed himself up, face pale, lips trembling. His fury wasn't gone. It was worse. Unhinged. I stumbled to the second door again, pulling the handle with everything I had. This time, it gave way, swinging open into a hallway. I bolted out barefoot, the floor icy against my feet. His steps followed, uneven but relentless. He clutched his shoulder, blood dripping onto the tiles, but he didn't stop. I saw stairs ahead and dragged myself toward them. Every step felt like it could be my last, but I climbed, my chest burning. He was slower now, but his shadow stretched across the walls, closing in. At the top of the stairs, another door slammed open. Bright lights hit me. Paramedics and officers rushed in, voices loud. Commands shouted. I collapsed at their feet, the scalpel slipping from my hand. Primetta looked back. The hallway was empty. He hadn't followed. I woke up again, this time in a hospital bed. Machines beeped steadily beside me. My throat was raw, my body sore, but I was alive. They told me no death certificate had been filed. There were no official records of me ever being processed. The morgue I described was cleared out before investigators arrived. Only faint stains on the tiles remained. They suggested I imagined parts of it. That trauma had blurred reality, but I remember his face, his grip, the way his eyes shifted from fear to fury to obsession. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, I wake expecting to hear the zipper closing again. The sound of footsteps waiting for me to move. My name is Rachel, and I work in a funeral home. My job isn't glamorous, but it pays the bills. I prepare bodies for viewing, clean them, and apply makeup so families can say goodbye without the image of death burned into their memory. It's routine. I don't ask questions. Most of the time, it's quiet. The family comes in, leaves the clothes and instructions, and I do my part. It's repetitive, like any other job. But sometimes, the bodies tell stories by themselves. Bruises, scars, expressions locked in. I learned to ignore all of that. You stop seeing people after a while and only see tasks. That night, though, I didn't walk into just another job. The body I was about to work on wasn't like the rest. I didn't know it at the time, but it was the start of something I wasn't ready for. I clocked in, washed my hands, and checked the next assignment. A man named Victor Hale, late 50s, cause of death. Cardiac arrest. I pulled back the sheet and immediately froze. His skin was covered in strange cuts, not random scratches, but patterns, circles, lines, marks that looked like symbols carved into him. I hesitated before starting. Families usually give instructions about how they want the makeup done. This one was vague. Just cover him up. I took out my brushes and foundation, but the marks were deep. No amount of powder would hide them. As I leaned closer, I noticed something else. His fingernails were black, cracked, with dirt jammed underneath. His lips were blue, but not from death, more like from something chemical. I tried to shake it off. My job wasn't to figure out what he did in life, but still, my hands were slow that night. The symbols pulled my attention. Some looked burned into him, others carved with a blade. He had scars on his forehead, and his eyes, even closed, seemed restless, like they were pressing against the lids from underneath. The room smelled different, too. Normally, it's chemicals, disinfectant, and faint traces of decay. With him, there was an extra stench, a sour, rotten odor that clung to my clothes. I opened the small window above the table, but it didn't help. I worked in silence, but every few minutes, I glanced at the body, expecting him to twitch. Nothing moved, of course, just the sound of my brush scraping against dry skin. When I finally finished, I covered him with the sheet and left. For some reason, I didn't look back. That night, when I got home, the smell followed me. My apartment was usually sterile, filled with candles to drown out work. But as soon as I walked in, I caught it again. That same rotten scent, like something spoiled, was stuck inside my nose. I tried to distract myself, took a shower, lit incense, even opened every window. None of it mattered. The odor stayed. I lay in bed, exhausted, but my head spun. It wasn't just the smell anymore. It was the feeling that something else was inside the room with me. The silence grew heavy. I pulled the blanket up to my chin, forcing my eyes shut. Just when I was about to drift off, I felt it. The faintest pressure at the end of the bed, like weight sinking the mattress. I didn't move. My throat tightened as if speaking would invite it closer. I opened my eyes slowly, and he was there. Victor, standing by my bedroom door, his body stiff, his head tilted, staring directly at me. His skin looked darker than at the morgue, and the symbols carved in him seemed raw. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He stood. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. I sat up, not knowing whether to scream or run. Victor didn't move, but the doors in my apartment did. The bathroom door slammed shut. Then the kitchen cabinets banged open and closed over and over, like invisible hands were tearing the place apart. I stumbled out of bed and reached for my phone, but it slid off the nightstand by itself, clattering across the floor. Victor took one slow step forward. His foot dragged, heavy, deliberate. The air thickened with the rotten smell until I gagged. Primera vez que Hawaii, pressing against the wall. My lamp flickered and went out. The only light came from the street lamp outside, cutting across Victor's face. His mouth stretched open slowly, but there was no sound, only silence. That silence felt worse than if he'd screamed. The banging in the apartment grew violent, every door, every cabinet slamming over and over. My own bedroom door rattled so hard the hinges squealed. I grabbed the handle, tried to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. Behind me, Victor's dragging steps grew louder. I yanked harder at the door, my palms slick with sweat. The wood groaned, but didn't give. I screamed, not even sure at what, but but maybe just hoping noise would drown out the pounding inside my head. Then, with one final shove, the door burst open, and I stumbled into the hallway. The lights flickered as I ran. My apartment wasn't big, but every step felt endless. The kitchen drawers flew open, silverware spilling across the floor. I tripped, nearly falling, and looked back. Victor was at the end of the hall, his movement slow but steady, his body jerking slightly like strings were pulling him. I reached the front door and clawed at the lock. My hand shook too much to turn it. The door rattled as if something pushed back against me from the other side. My knees weakened. Behind me, the dragging sound grew closer, each step heavier than the last. The knob finally turned, but the door wouldn't open. I pulled until my arms ached. It was stuck, jammed, like nailed shut. Victor stopped just a few feet away. His head tilted again, eyes fixed on me. The symbols across his chest seemed to move, shifting like crawling insects under the skin. His hand lifted, slow and stiff, reaching toward me. The moment his fingers brushed the air near my face, I woke up. My heart still pounded as if I'd been running for hours. I was back in bed. The lamp glowed softly beside me. The doors were still. Everything was quiet. It had been a dream, a nightmare so vivid my body trembled as if it were real. I sat up, shaky, telling myself it was just exhaustion from work. I got up for water. The kitchen tiles were cold under my feet, grounding me. I poured a glass, lifted it, and froze. On the floor, faint but visible, were footprints, wet, dark, smeared with mud. They trailed across the kitchen and into the hallway, leading straight toward my bedroom. My hand shook so badly, I dropped the glass. Water spread across the tiles, mixing with the prints. I grabbed my phone and dialed. When the police arrived, they searched the entire place. Nothing. No one. They told me maybe I tracked the mud in myself. I didn't argue, but I hadn't been anywhere near dirt or rain. The next morning, I went back to work. I kept my head down, focused on cleaning tools, trying not to think about it. But when I walked past the preparation room, I saw him, Victor, lying on the table, waiting for his family's final viewing. My stomach dropped. I forced myself to step closer, just to prove he was still lifeless. But then I saw his feet, mud caked between the toes, dry dirt flaking off onto the white sheet, the same prints that stained my apartment floor. I couldn't breathe. I rushed out, hiding in the restroom until my shift ended. That evening, I avoided my apartment until I knew I couldn't stall any longer. 4 nights after, I lit every light, slept in bursts, waiting for him to appear again, but he never did. After his funeral, the stench was gone. The nights were silent again. His body was buried, and with it, whatever followed me seemed to disappear. Still, every time I pass a cemetery or step into the prep room, I wonder if one day another body will open its eyes in my dreams, or worse, outside of them.